views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up on this edition of Today's Verdict, with one of the most contentious election seasons in years headed our way, citizens aren't quite sure which candidates they'll be voting for. Well, tonight we'll get a chance to sit down with a few political experts who will give their forecast for this November. Then later on in our show, we will find out what you, the voters, should expect the day of the election. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's Verdict starts right now. Hello and welcome to Today's Verdict, the live and interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. Well, Today's Verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected. Make sure to tweet us at Today's Verdict and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. Also, make sure to like us and follow us on Facebook at Today's Verdict, and check us out at BronxNet.tv/BronxLegal. And last, but certainly not least, don't forget to tweet me at David Lesh. Well, the closer we get to Election Day, the more tense our decision-making gets. We will dive into what each presidential candidate stands for with respect to big issues in our country. And joining us today is Assistant Editor of Above the Law, Catherine Rubino. Catherine, thanks so much for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me, David.
I am very excited about this election. So many different issues. But first, let's talk a little bit about the qualifications. We got Hillary Clinton. Sure. We have Donald Trump.
Hillary Clinton, you know, former senator from lovely New York, former Secretary of State, as well as the work that she did as First Lady. She was often involved in a lot of policy issues during her time in the White House. Donald Trump, on the other hand,
None.
Well, he's a reality TV star. I guess that means something.
Although they say, you know, Hillary, even though she does have some political standing and that she has been out there, she's still less than the average presidential candidate.
Sure. I mean, we are just coming off of Barack Obama's presidency, which also did not have a ton of prior time in elected office before he was president, but historically that is certainly accurate.
I thought a fun thing to do, or at least to start off with, is throw some issues at you.
Okay.
Fairly brief, and just so we can see which side of the fence each one is on, okay? We'll start with some of the issues and then we'll see. All right, let's talk with the easy ones. Abortion. Okay. Hillary versus Donald.
Hillary is very pro-choice, supports a woman's right to choose, whereas historically Donald Trump was pro-choice, but as he decided to run for elected office as a Republican, he's become much more pro-life.
I would agree with that. All right, the hiring of women. What do you think?
I definitely think that Hillary Clinton supports women in the workforce and has taken a lot of steps and supports a lot of policies that would increase women's participation and also full equal pay. Donald Trump, in theory, you know, Ivanka has a great job with his organization, and he certainly says that he supports that, but there have also been a lot of questions and rumors that whether or not he'd have policies that would actually support.
Yeah, it doesn't even seem really he has too much of an opinion on it. He's kind of neutral on it. Same-sex marriage.
Hillary Clinton is very much in support of it, which is the law of the lands ever since the Supreme Court ruled on it last year, and Donald Trump is against it. Now,
not to give it away, but there are only a few of these where they actually feel the same way. Let's talk about God.
They do both
keeping God in
yes.
the public sphere.
Yeah, they're both pretty pro-God.
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good way to go as a presidential candidate. Let's keep God in the public sphere, right? The Environmental Protection Agency.
Hillary Clinton's in favor of it and certainly supports a lot of regulations that are currently on the books, as well as proposing some new ones, whereas Donald Trump seems to be against it as well.
You think that's just his conservative background?
I think it's a little bit his conservative background. I think that he has a very pro-business, free market kind of way of thinking about it. So to the extent that there needs to be more regulations, that's something that the market would sort of naturally cure for, as opposed to having a top-down regulatory system, which is something that historically Democrats, and Hillary Clinton is amongst those, believe in.
Voter registration, making it easier for voters to be able to get to the polls and register. How does each one feel?
Hillary Clinton's certainly in favor of it. She's supported, there's been a recent set of court decisions that have overturned states' various rights to enforce voter ID laws, and she's been very vocally in support of them. Whereas Donald Trump takes the very historic Republican stance and supports things like voter ID and making it a little bit more difficult to get to the polls.
How about this one, marijuana?
Marijuana. I think that Hillary Clinton supports states' rights to make it legal and to not enforce sort of the worst penalties for on a federal level for marijuana possession.
And Donald?
I think that he's probably likes the law and order sense. He made that a big theme of his convention.
Actually, this is one of the other
ones
really? Where they kind of agree.
Well,
I don't know if he agrees as much as she does, but I don't think it's as big a problem for him. But
and that seems to be the trend nationwide as well. More and more states are decriminalizing it.
Stricter punishment reduces crime. What do you think?
Well, I think that historically, certainly in the 1994 crime bill that President, the first, hopefully, Clinton passed was definitely increased crime punishments for violent crimes, and I think that Donald Trump's in favor as well.
All right, we'll get back to some of these because we got some good ones. Gun ownership, Obamacare. We're going to skip to the good one.
Okay.
Which is the good one? Immigration.
Probably.
All right, so let's talk about Hillary Clinton and how she feels about the immigration issue we have in our country.
She supports comprehensive immigration reform. She thinks that she supports the executive orders that Barack Obama had passed to keep families that are here, keep them here, keep families together. And she said she'll actually go even further than Barack Obama's executive orders did and really change the system. She wants to create a Bureau of Immigrant Affairs to make it.
There's a little bit of a knock on her with respect to immigration, and that's almost that she's too lax. How do you respond to that?
I mean, I think that she certainly has said that she supports more immigration even than what has been done the last 8 years under Barack Obama. But I'm not sure that it's necessarily. We are fundamentally a nation built on immigration, so I'm not sure that everyone thinks of it as a knock versus something that they really do support. But she supports the people who are here legally having a path to citizenship, people who have been here, have not committed crimes, and are members of our society becoming, having a way to be here legally.
And I think we'll find when we talk about maybe the strengths and the weaknesses of the two candidates that that certainly is a strength of hers, a coalition building type of strength. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think that, making families at the centerpiece of what she believes in terms of policy has been a recurring theme in her campaign.
All right, and now Mr. Trump. Let's talk about what his policies are with respect to the immigration issue.
Certainly, most famously, he wants to build a wall between America and Mexico and to have Mexico pay for it. Not sure how that's going to happen, but he assures us it will.
And didn't he just go to Mexico?
He did just go to Mexico.
How'd that work out?
No international incident, so I suppose that's a win. But they didn't really talk about how the wall will be paid for. Trump came back and declared it a victory, but it's unclear that there's any actual policy initiatives that were discussed in any amount of substance.
He talks about stopping wire transfers from monies that are going from illegal immigrants back to their families. He talks about, charging tariffs, people coming back and forth. Fairly unique ways to try and prevent the immigration or to try and prevent those who are not from our country coming in and taking our resources. What do you think that's going to play out?
I think that a lot of those things, particularly when you're talking about people who are here and trying to make a better life and be able to send money back to family members in other countries that are less well off, I think that really has an act of sort of breaking apart those family units, which is the exact opposite of what Hillary Clinton's trying to do when she's trying to build that up as a centerpiece of her campaign. Whereas I'm not sure that we need more financial regulations in order to minimize.
No, but you understand what he's saying. He's saying, look, you're making this money. You're not paying taxes on it. You're taking the full amount and you're sending it back to your family. So wait a second, you're working here. Can't you give us the taxable portion for the rest of the community that you're taking taxes for?
That's certainly one way to get around the issue of taxing Another alternative, of course, is paths to citizenship or legality for them being here, and then they would have to pay taxes as well.
And by the way, I have no position on
Fair
either
enough.
candidate. That's why I'm sitting here like this. But there is one particular interesting issue that he puts forth, and that's stopping sanctuary cities. And sanctuary cities are cities in the United States that are afraid to enforce the immigration laws because they don't want to make a rift between law enforcement and the community. What do you think?
I think that they're sanctuary cities, the local communities have a very delicate balance to play. They want people who are victimized by crimes to report them, whether or not they're here legally. And certainly I think that there's a law and order justification for that kind of mentality for police departments and local localities to have. And I think that that's really come as a result of the very hard line that the federal government has taken on immigration, and that localities have to find a way to deal with it and make sure that they don't have areas where perhaps there are a lot of illegal immigrants where crime is allowed to sort of flourish because people are scared to call the cops.
That's a good point. Well, let me ask you a question about this E-Verify. Very briefly, that's where Trump is arguing that if you're going to hire somebody, you should be able to verify that they're a U.S. citizen through, a particular type of Form I-9 that's used, and it has to match with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. How do you feel about making it mandatory that these companies E-Verify? I
mean, it seems a little futuristic, little sci-fi, dystopian worldview to me. I think that there are certainly things currently in place that, employers have to do in order to be able to hire people. And I don't think that making it more difficult for people to obtain jobs is going to have a good effect on society at large.
All right, let's do some strengths and weaknesses of the candidates. Okay, let's start with Ms. Clinton. What's her biggest strength?
I think her biggest strength is her ability to build coalitions. She's been widely talked about that she's a listener, that she talks to people before she makes decisions on various matters of policy and is willing to adapt her perspective based on what people say to her. And she's really able to, during her time in the Senate, she was noted for being able to talk to even Republicans that were very partisan and really be able to create
What's her biggest weakness?
I think there's definitely a very strong perception that she's not truthful and that she may be hiding stuff. I think that the whole scandal with her email servers, that she kept them on private servers when she spent time as Secretary of State and did not use the official means for communication, has certainly been a huge challenge for her.
Okay, we don't have too much time. Donald, what's Donald's greatest strength?
He talks well on television. He knows how to give a good press conference. He has the media in a lot of ways eating out of the palm of his hands, and I think that for today's media-savvy constituency, that matters.
He's definitely a master of the media. What I like about him, and I think his biggest strength, is that he can flip-flop on issues and still come out fine.
Yeah.
Imagine taking two positions on the same issue, and yet nobody takes you to task on it.
Yeah, I think
that's a strength.
I absolutely think so.
You never go wrong that way. I'm pro-abortion. I'm against it. I'm against abortion. You can go both ways.
Absolutely.
Really, very little time left. Let's give some predictions here. Okay. What do you think? We're going to have the first female president, or are we going to have the first TV apprentice?
First reality TV
star. Because Reagan was a star in some respects.
Sure, reality. Well, I think that the polls suggest that the race is really tightening, but that Hillary Clinton has a lead of about 3 to 4 percentage points. I think that'll stick. I think we'll see what happens after the end of the month. We're having the first presidential debate. I think we'll see things kind of how they're going to shake out after that.
We'll take you to task. We'll have you back, and we'll see how you did.
I'd love to be here.
All right. Well, we have to take a quick break, but don't worry. We will be back with more Today's Verdict right after this.
Adopting a new pet is a rewarding experience. And shelter pets make super pets. Your new best friend will steal your heart, bring you happiness, and enrich your life for years to come. You can make a difference in the life of an animal. Adopt and bring home a shelter pet today. To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org.
If you want to stay in the know about the latest happenings en español, check out Diálogo Abierto, BronxNet's own Spanish show, Wednesdays, 6:30 p.m. on Channel 67. The latest in news, arts, culture, politics, and what's going on in your neighborhood. Diálogo Abierto, the best way to stay connected in Spanish. See you there. Te esperamos.
Hello, good people of the Bronx and beyond. Welcome to A Life in Art.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
When you're out there, there's no telling what you'll find.
I see it, I see it! Oh, look at you.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Well, welcome back to Today's Verdict. I'm your host, David Lesh. We're always encouraging you to stay connected. Tweet us at Today's Verdict. Now, as a voter, you should know what you will be expecting the day of the election, as well as what you will need to do beforehand. Well, joining us today to prepare us for this day is Executive Director from the Board of Elections in the City of New York, Michael J. Ryan. Michael Ryan. Michael Ryan, what is the Board of Elections, just so the viewers understand what's going on here?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Yes, no problem. I'm the Executive Director of the Board of Elections, so the Board of Elections is basically divided into two separate functions. One is the agency of the Board of Elections, which has full-time employees and prepares for elections, ongoing throughout the year. And the other thing is we actually put the election events on anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year, depending on the election cycle. This year was a 4 election cycle, and as well as any special elections that may be called for various reasons throughout the year.
And you coordinate that?
We coordinate that. In a full election, we have 1,201 poll sites. We deliver over 50,000 separate pieces of equipment throughout the city. It's quite a Herculean undertaking, as well as employing approximately 36,000 temporary workers for the day. So we're the largest temporary employer in the city of New York.
Well, certainly not an easy task, but let's talk a little bit about voters and how they can even become eligible to be able to participate in one of your elections.
Right. First of all, you have to be a United States citizen.
Okay.
And you need to be a resident of the city of New York or have sufficient contacts, because some people do split time between New York and another state. But if you can choose New York State to be your home state for the purposes of registering.
Are there any any types of loopholes for somebody who isn't a citizen or anything? Is there any way to kind of it gets around it, or is there somebody who can't get to the anything at all, any exceptions at all, or not really?
No, you have to be a citizen of the United States to vote. And interestingly enough, you can be a citizen of the United States having never lived in the United States and still, for the purposes of presidential elections, be able to vote as a special federal voter.
And be really?
Right. Yeah. So it's a very liberal standard, with the exception that you have to be a citizen.
Okay. 18 years of age before the election, right? Not be serving a jail sentence or be on parole for a felony.
Correct.
What does that mean, really?
Which means, it means exactly what it says. If you were convicted of a felony and you are actively on parole or currently serving a jail sentence, you are not eligible to vote. However, once your debt to society is over, and I think this is something that people miss, they think that they've lost their right to vote forever. New York does not do that to its citizens. As a method of rehabilitating the individual back to an acceptable societal standard, you're eligible to participate in the voting process again, but you would have to re-register.
You have to re-register. Is it a tough process to re-register, or is it just as everybody else who just registers to begin with?
It's like any other form you have to fill out. I mean, if you know your name, your address, your date of birth, the last 4 digits of your social security number, and what party affiliation you want to choose, or not choose for that matter, because you don't have to choose a party, and you can sign your name or make a reasonably consistent mark on a piece of paper, you're eligible to vote.
I thought this was interesting. You can't be adjudged mentally incompetent by a court.
Right.
Now, I see a lot of Article 81 guardianship proceedings in the courthouse. Once the proceeding is brought, but yet you have not been adjudged to be incompetent, you still have the right to vote, I would assume.
Correct. And it requires a judge's signature on an order determining you to be Article 81 incompetent. And then the Office of Court Administration has a procedure where they give that information over to the State Board of Elections, and ultimately it's transmitted to the City Board.
And by the way, your guardian can't vote for you.
Correct.
Right, because maybe, well, I'm the guardian of my grandmother who's incompetent, I'm going to go vote twice. Doesn't work that way.
Your guardian can't vote for you, or anyone else cannot vote for you. You can get assistance at the poll site from a person of your choosing, but assistance is not supplantation or replacement.
Gotcha. All right. Here's one. Not claim the right to vote elsewhere. What do you mean by that?
So, for example, New York has, things, people that we call snowbirds that go to Florida and stay in Florida for a portion of the year. You cannot and should not be registered to vote in another jurisdiction and also registered to vote in New York.
Even if you just want to vote half the year in Florida and half the year in New York, doesn't
Correct.
Work that way?
For voting purposes, you need to pick a single locale to vote in.
All right. The very important question of how do you register to vote? Please explain.
We're making it easier. Still, the old-fashioned way exists, where you can fill out a voter registration form. Libraries have them. We've disseminated them to some of our local elected officials' offices as well as the post office, or you can stop in at any one of our offices or request that one be mailed to you.
Now, when you're looking to make sure that you boost voter registration, which I'm sure is a high priority at the Board of Elections, do you mail out information during the entire year or only during those, let's say, 4 different events?
Well, we are required to send out, by statute, a mailer commencing on August 1st and not later than August 5th to all almost 3 million voters in the city of New York, advising them of all of the contests for a given period. But I did want to say one more thing about voter registration. We do have an online version of that on our website, where you can go on and fill out the form, but you still have to print it up and sign it and send it back to us, because we have to capture your original signature, because that's the image that's going to go into the poll list book on Election Day and prove that you are who you say you are.
That's very important. And
yes.
Speaking of voter fraud, which of course, is something that everybody, is always worried about during elections. What do you guys do to make sure that somebody is truly who they say they are when they enter that box?
Well, when they come in, they have to first, the last 4 digits of their social security number are matched with their name by the state before they even go into the books. Then they have to come in and they have to sign the book. If we suspect a fraud or a poll observer suspects fraud, the individual would have to take a challenge oath.
What is that?
Which is a separate oath at the table that is now saying, I am who I say I am. And at the end of it, if we still suspect that there was fraud, that would be referred to the appropriate district attorney's office for investigation. But the Presidential Commission report, bipartisan report in 2014, has taught us that actual instances of voter fraud, in-person voter fraud, are minuscule, because there really is no upside. if you wanted to affect an election,
It's not going to be
right.
you're one person coming in and saying that you're Michael Ryan.
Right. If you wanted to affect an election in New York City, you'd have to have a massive undertaking to try to move the numbers. And every one of those individuals, including the organizers, would be committing a felony.
So maybe the fraud is really getting people on the ballot who shouldn't be there, as opposed to the voting. But
I'll leave that for others to speculate.
You can leave that to me to think about. The polling places get very hectic on the days of the voting, whether it's courthouses, whatever. I've seen it. What do you guys do to make sure that people aren't afraid of getting there and either being crushed by the crowds or not ruining their day so they can't get back to work? What do you kind of do to make sure that everything works smooth?
Well, I think that there is a misconception that the polling places are this absolutely frenetic and chaotic place all day long. What we're finding, the trend is people vote now before the workday starts, so that we do have a spike in the morning, and then we have a spike later on in the evening after 7 o'clock. So what we're doing now is we have a students as poll workers program that we're operating, as well as we've been working with the administration, the mayor's administration, to try to get municipal workers to help us during those peak hours to make it as smooth as possible.
Because remember, the population's only growing. It's not as like it's shrinking, so it's a harder and harder process for you guys.
But the other thing I would do is I would encourage everyone to go onto our poll site locator, because that not only tells you where you go to vote, it gives you your election district and your assembly district, which is the table that you need to go to when you get to the poll site. And it gives you the opportunity to view your ballot and print up a copy of it if you wanted to, so that you can pre-select your choices before you get there.
Which really makes it much easier.
Right. So then when you get there, you're going straight to the booth. You're going to fill out the ovals and move on. And the faster that we can process people through, the better off we are.
Give a final tip to a viewer who's watching right now about Election Day.
The polls are open from 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 p.m. at night. So you have 15 hours during that day to get out and vote. I think that's enough time for people to be able to plug themselves in there somewhere along the line of their day. It is a very, very, very important right to exercise, and especially poignant on this upcoming 15th anniversary of September 11th, which makes it even that more important.
I could not have said it better myself. Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see how the election goes, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course you, the viewers, for watching. If you missed any part of today's show, be sure to check it out at www.bronxnet.tv. Also remember, if there is a legal issue or topic you would like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to contact me at davidlesh@bronxnet.org or tweet us at Today's Verdict, and make sure to hashtag #AskToday'sVerdict. From myself and all of us at Today's Verdict, always remember, know your rights, know your issues, reach a verdict. I'm David Lesh, and we will see you again in 2 weeks with an all-new episode of Today's Verdict right here on BronxNet. Take care.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit the Shelter Pet Project.